Respected Director, Deans, Professor Ashok Junjunwala sir, faculty and students, a very warm good evening to one and all. Now, we would like to welcome our beloved Director with flowers by Anand. We request Director Sir to present a fruit basket to Professor Ashok Junjunwala and welcome him. Now I request Director Sir to give the opening address for the day.
Good evening and a hearty welcome to all of you. Normally we have extramural lectures with external speakers from outside in this format, but today it's heartening to see that we are hearing one of our own speak. Well, you're going to hear a story, and there's no better person to tell the story than Ashok himself. This is a story that started, I think, 5-6 years ago, before I became director. I know that because both of us are essentially faculty who have been working in telecom and networking and for all our life. And but I used to have this started developing this interest in energy, this solar, what's happening, because of just reading in the news what's happening in solar power and all these things and BLDC motors and all that. Didn't know at that time anything about these technologies and still don't know much. So I used to send mails to him saying, see this, and so on. And got a little more, found out that one company in India which makes fans was actually making a fan that consumed only half the power of a normal fan, half the energy, but wasn't releasing it in the market. So we knew the company, so talked to the R&D guy and found out why, and so one thing led to another, and then we actually felt that lights and fans should be, we should move to a completely new generation of these appliances. And then we called a secretary of the Power Ministry, who happens to be an alumnus of the institute, and he asked some very tough questions. He says, yes, this saves some power, but why will people change their appliances? Payback period is all too long for Indians to be impressed. So you have to do something to make people want to change to these appliances. So that set us thinking on, a lot of this work has been done in the last 3-4 years. I have not been participating too much because of my other preoccupations, but Ashok has been driving it, huge group of people. We naturally, to do this, once we decided we are going to get into this, we have to bring in involve the people who really know this stuff. And so Krishna Vasudevan, Lakshmi Narasimha, various people in the electrical department who are people who really understand motors, drives, power electronics. They were also, enthused, and they all became a big team, and now it's a very huge team. And the story has gone further because Ashok is involved with one of the companies in India that is involved in electric vehicles. So it's now gone much bigger, and it also encompasses this whole area of electric vehicles. You'll hear the story. What I want to tell you is that today you hear the story, just enjoy it, go back. But you think about these things. What you will see is an example or several examples of various initiatives, various decisions, various questions that were asked. Why this way? Why not that way? Why we shouldn't do something that people say you should not do? Okay, that's not the way it's done. Okay, nobody uses DC, nobody uses 48 volts. So all these we also heard. Sometimes it is right. There are very good reasons why people don't do certain things. There are very good reasons why you don't use a DC voltage greater than 60 or 70 volts, which a user can come into contact with today, because there are not enough safety devices that can ensure your safety. But there was no reason why you shouldn't use a voltage below that. So you have to ask all these questions. And one lesson or one learning is how, there are all these different forks in the road that one can take. And very often we ignore many folks because we are told that that fork has been ruled out long ago. It might have been ruled out for some other reason. Number two, how does one, there are also many issues that are not just related to the engineering or the technology. There are economic issues, there are other issues. For example, when this fan was being developed, we realized that these brushless DC fans, they require magnets, permanent magnets, and the permanent magnets, to make them small and powerful, you have to use rare earths, and 95% of the rare earths in the world are controlled by China. It's all mined in China. So one of the big issues was, that will become a very critical dependency and so on and so forth. But it turned out that finally there was a company working quietly, at least as far as fans are concerned. They were able to make the fan with ferrites, which are available everywhere, in the same size. So, ferrites usually are bigger, but in the context of a fan, they were able to make it so that it appears, looks, behaves, and in every way identical to the fans that you and I are used to. So you don't care what's inside. So we found that they had been working for years on this, and they don't need the rare earth magnet. So there are many, many things that one has to take care of. Some are not technology alone. So you'll hear this, and this is only the beginning of this long story. There's lot more things to be done. Potentially, if many of the initiatives that have been taken are in the right direction, this can lead to a complete reinvention or complete replacement of all the appliances that we use in the home, in the offices, and finally the vehicles. And it, all in the interest of actually lower energy consumption, more renewable energy consumption, and overall in the direction of sustainability and reducing carbon footprint. And in the process, it creates a huge opportunity for manufacturing, make in India, value creation, income generation, and so on. But you'll find a lot of questions will arise in your mind. Those are very important. All of you should ask those questions. Is an electric car the right way to go? What is it? If you take it at the fundamental level of thermodynamic efficiency, what is the right thing to do? But then there are many issues, is pollution better tackled in the electric power generation plant than in each car? Is it better to pollute in some other place than in the city? There's so many questions. And electric cars themselves, there's so much work to be done to make them more efficient, more affordable, and so on and so forth. So I won't take any more time, but I want to just tell you that listen to the story, then let all the questions slosh around in your mind, start discussions. We can have more meetings, smaller ones, in smaller groups. The idea is that we want people to start thinking about these kinds of things, not just in this area, but in other areas. The opportunities are immense in kind of challenges that we face in the country. The opportunities are immense, and if we get the right solutions, there'll be solutions not just for India, but for the world. And that's the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I take immense pleasure in introducing today's speaker. Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala received his B.Tech degree from IIT Kanpur and his MS and PhD degrees from the University of Maine. From 1979 to 1981, he was with Washington State University and has been at IIT Madras ever since, where he leads the Telecommunications and Computer Networks Group. This group works with industry in the development of telecom, banking, IT, and power system technologies relevant to India, and has a special focus on rural technologies. It has incubated more than 50 companies in the last 20 years. He chairs IITM Incubation Cell, Health Technology Innovation Center, co-chairs Rural Technology and Business Incubator at IIT Madras, and is professor in charge of IITM Research Park. He also chairs a MHRD committee called Quality Enhancement of Engineering Education, focused on 500 Indian engineering colleges other than IITs and NITs. He also chairs Mobile Payment Forum of India. Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala has been awarded Padma Shri in the year 2002. He has been awarded Shanti Swarup Madnakar Award in 1998, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Research Award for the year 1997, Millennium Medal at Indian Science Congress in the year 2000, and H.K. Firodia for Excellence in Science and Technology for the year 2002. Sri Om Prakash Bhasan Foundation Award for Science and Technology for the year 2004. Jawaharlal Nehru Birth Centenary Lecture Award by INSA for the year 2006. IBM Innovation and Leadership Forum Award by IBM for the year 2006. Bernard Lowe Humanitarian Award in 2009. Bharat Asmita Vigyan Tantragnan Shreshtata Award for the best use of science and technology through innovation in 2010, and awarded honorary doctorates by the Institute of Blekinge Institute of Technology, Sweden in 2008, and University of Maine, USA in 2010. In 2010, he was also awarded J.C. Bose Fellowship by DST, Government of India, awarded Dronacharya by TIE in 2011, and recently awarded Top Innovator of Top 11 in 2011 Innovators Challenge. He is a fellow of World Wireless Research Forum, IEEE, and Indian academies including INAE, IAS, INSA, and NAS. Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala is a director in the board of Tata Teleservices Maharashtra Limited, Polaris, 3i Infotech, Sanken, Tejas, Tata Communications, Exicom, and Mahindra Reva Electrical Vehicles Private Limited. He is also a board member of several educational institutes and Section 25 companies including BIRAC. He is member of Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Committee. Professor AJ has had a career of bold initiatives in developing appropriate technologies for India. Noticing that power is now the main bottleneck in India, he had currently been trying to address the issue on multiple fronts. The UDC approach to provide uninterrupted power to households from the grid while accommodating load shedding that utilities required during power start times is a unique approach to address power concerns. As a strong driver of developing low-cost solutions and taking them all the way to make them fit for industry, he has shown strong commitment to make research relevant to the ecosystem. He is also driving many developments in energy-efficient appliances and use of solar power for various uses, including off and on-grid usage. He is currently an institute professor of IITM. Let us now listen to the long-awaited talk by Professor AJ.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I thought I will never get a chance to speak. So, thank you very much. I think I'll start with a story that probably many of you have heard, but, and very recent story. December 1st week, those of us who live in Chennai, were in Chennai, know what happened. I need to turn this on somewhere. Know what happened to Chennai. I think we all remember the floods. What we also, those of us who live in IIT did not have power for 75 hours. In fact, we have even solar plant of 1 megawatt. That did not generate a single watt of power. But there was one home which has only 125 watt of solar panel. 125 watt of solar panel is about 3 times this size. Roughly this size. That was on the rooftop. And that homes had, through that, lights, fans, everything connected, computers connected, mobile phones connected, television connected, and it continued to function all of the 75 hours. Now I know this because that was my house, and it was, some reason I'm having difficulty with this. Okay, so, and I was very worried that after all it is 125 watt of solar panel, and those of us remember it was a Tuesday evening that the power had gone away. Wednesday there was practically no sun. The battery that it has was 1 kilowatt hour, only half of it could be used. So only half a kilowatt hour, half a unit for which we pay only 2 rupee 50 paise. That much power that we had. And there was practically no sun. So I was worried all the time that we are not going to, sometime or other, I'm going to lose power. Now, so I was fortunately alone at that time, or unfortunately alone, just used to cook, had nothing much to do, you couldn't go out anywhere. So for me, the laptop was very important, cell phones were very important, connectivity was very important. The first day there was institute connectivity, I could use my laptop, but my laptop, within an hour and a half, the power goes off. Then I had to continue to charge it again. The connectivity, after the first day, the connectivity disappeared, the institute connectivity disappeared, but I had a photon connection. I could use it for another day or so. Then that also went away. Then I had a phone, Airtel phone, that gave me the connectivity. Finally, that gave up, and there was a BSNL phone that gave the connectivity. So one or the other was on all the time. I had to keep on trying, but my power was there all the time. And Wednesday, there was not much of sun. It's a question that kept on in my mind, how is it powering this whole thing? I did my calculation, and my calculations was not adding up. All the things that I have, but yet just kind of managed to do that. I was all the time worried that we are almost out of the power. Fortunately, Thursday there was good sunlight. That I think helped a lot. Friday also there was good sunlight. So, Thursday was not too good, but it was okay. Friday there was reasonable amount of sunlight. And that, even though it fails to add up, I now done calculations again and again and could see why could I use it. There were a number of things. One of the things that I could do is my lighting I could dim. I was using LED light, but I could dim. My fan, I was virtually not running it. Whenever I was running it at a speed of 1. And when you run it at a speed of 1, it consumes very little power. And that's the reason it adds up, because of the solar DC. I think I might as well stand there because this doesn't seem to work well. The solar DC inverterless with full DC wiring, my fans, lights, my laptop charger, cell phone charger, television I didn't use much, everything was on DC line. Now, what is this DC line? This is not what we are used to. For last 100 years, we have AC line in our home, 230 volt AC line. Where is this DC line suddenly came in? And how does the DC line really help? Now, to just get to understand that, please come in, those of you who are standing at the door. I've learned my little bit of solar, as Bhaskar was pointing out, about 3.5 years back. There was Dr. Kumarvel, who was heading CEC, and used to for years work on solar, and he helped me learn this solar. Now, if I use solar, the solar produces DC power. The first thing that, when I started working with him, he told me it produces DC power. Till that time, I had probably some idea, but I didn't know. And then you have to do a DC to AC converter. I said, what's the big deal? DC to AC converter. I remember we had not even learned this DC to AC converter and AC to DC converter when we were electrical engineering students. We sort of said, oh, these are straightforward, simple things. We will just ignore them. What I found was that this was losing 15% of the power. And I remember having a fight with Dr. Kumarvel. Why should it lose 15% of power? Well, he said that if you are going to make this at a fraction of the cost of the solar panel, the solar panel, 125 watt solar panel, will cost about 5,000 rupees. And if you make this DC to AC converter within 1,000 rupees or 800 rupees or so, or something of that order, then there will be loss of 15%. If you're ready to pay 3,000 rupees, maybe he can make it not 15%, but 10% loss. And even 10% loss was quite a bit. So, well, I said, fine, we have to lose the 10% DC power. And then we will synchronize it to the grid. No problem, we'll be able to synchronize it to the grid. So we want a grid to be also used, solar to be used. But then particularly when you're using solar, since the solar power fluctuates, you'll normally use a battery. And when you use a battery, battery also stores DC. This at least I knew. So then you needed another AC to DC converter. To my shock, Dr. Kumar Goel says that's another 15% loss. And then, once the battery is charged, when you take the power out of the battery is giving DC and you want to use AC, there is another DC to AC converter. And we have 45% losses just in that, plus at least 10% losses in the battery. I saw 55% of the power. So if I use whatever power, whatever I generate, 55% was going away. This was 3 years back. And even now, almost all the commercial systems being sold in the country, that's what happens. Of course, what I was told is that if you design this as a 10 kilowatt solar panel, now this 125 kilowatt solar panel, 125 watt solar panel of that size cost around 5,000 rupees. If you design 1 kilowatt will therefore cost about 8 times, that's about 40,000 rupees. 10 kilowatt will cost around 4 lakhs. So if you invest 4 lakhs rupees for your solar panel, fairly big roof, then it is not that bad. Then the loss will not be as bad as 15%. Loss will be only about 5%, or maybe even lower, 4%. Now, what I actually found out, that all this technology either came from Germany or United States. Germany, they put 10 kilowatt. In No Home, they put less than 10 kilowatt. So they are all right. They have a 3% loss there, or 3 to 4%. And we have just copied it. And in our homes, we'll put 125 watt, maybe 250 watt, maybe 375. And Devendra Jalihal may be able to put 1 kilowatt, but no more than that. And we will lose 55% of the power. And we saw all over the country that was being installed. The government is incentive. There are vendors who are going on asking the government to give incentives so that they can use it. In fact, nobody bought it without incentives. Because 55% of the power, if it is just wasted, what do you really get? Anyway, solar power is supposed to be expensive. Fortunately, solar power costs are coming down very rapidly. It was bad 3 years back, 4 years back. Now it is coming down very rapidly. It is almost 5 rupees if you don't lose all this power. But if you lose all this power, it again becomes much, much more. Who will use it? So this was the first thing that started bothering me, and we started looking at what can be done to really overcome that. And it became worse as we started looking at it, that this is what we have been using. But one more change that had taken place is that somebody started pointing out to me, my colleagues, other colleagues started pointing out to me, now we can do different kind of lights. We will not use the normal lights. These are the CFL tube lights. A tube light is 36 watts. And what I was told, well, you can use a LED tube light. That, of course, I knew. It only will consume about 15 watts. Now, what is more important, this LED tube light is DC. It does not work on AC. So what I have to do? I have to do another AC to DC conversion, another 15% loss. And those of us who have been buying this, even the bulb has 15% loss. And the other thing, of course, what I also learned, and which was what was very useful to me, is that you can dim the LED tube light. So LED tube light, there is a huge reason. But if you use it in AC, you lose 15% power. Then, even more shocking came fan. I had heard, when I was a student, I had heard about something called AC induction motor. And I knew that all these fans have AC induction motor. So the fan that we use in our home typically consumes 72 watts of power, 72 watts of power. And even if you run it down to speed 1, lowest speed, still consumes about 60 watts of power. But then somebody sort of said, today we can design brushless DC motors. Fans. I says, will it be as good? He says, why not? And we started working with Crompton Greaves, we started working with TVS Lucas, and we designed these fans. They consume only 30 watts. And if you run it at speed 1, which is what I was doing again at home during those floods, it consumes only 9 watts. The important thing is these fans are DC fans. It only runs on DC power. So if you are going to use AC power, you will again lose 15% power. At one time I sort of say, if by the time you lose all this 15% power, is there anything left? Practically nothing. And that is what we have been using, that is what country has been subsidizing. And it is thus not scaling up, it is not making any impact. So then, of course, what is our third biggest usage? My third biggest usage, as I told you, was my laptop, my cell phone, my television. Now, those were electronics. At least I knew all of that. All of that only runs on DC power. All of that run on DC power. So I'm running a Sony, this is a HP laptop. So I again took help of Dr. Kumar Well and started measuring losses. There is a, normally it is the phone works only on, the laptop works only on DC, so we use a AC adapter. That adapter, it was a top class adapter from HP. 35% power was going away. So 35% power I was wasting. Then I took my Nokia phone and I measured the converter loss there. The loss was 50%. Nobody was bothered. Television, we saw the losses were closer to 25 to 30%. So everywhere the power that we are using, we are wasting power. So much power we are wasting. In each of these things, we have been wasting power. And if they run directly on DC, you don't need these converters. You can design them to run directly on DC. And we started also looking at refrigerator, air conditioning, washing machine. I'm not going to talk about them. But they also, if you replace the normal induction motor that was used with a brushless DC motor, their power consumption is also going to come down. And then I found out the industry, everybody is replacing them. In fact, the lifts are today designed with brushless DC motor or motors with variable frequency drive, which is essentially runs on DC. Everything is running on DC. In fact, in the research park, the latest chiller that we have bought runs actually on a DC, though we are doing AC to DC conversion. And I saw everything is moving towards DC. What is it that we need to run on AC? Of course, AC versus DC debate was an old debate which took place 125 years old back. And there was a big debate between two camps, Edison and Tesla. Edison lost. Edison was for DC. He lost because the transmission, for transmission at that time, AC was far, far superior. And therefore, everybody has started using AC. The whole world has moved to AC. But appliances have gradually shifted to DC, gradually shifting to DC. And we are just wasting power. We are not concerned. Of course, the argument often goes that if I'm using DC motor, I'm anyway saving 50% of power. So what if I don't save 50%, I'll save 30%, let me lose 15%. That is the argument that has been going on, and we have been doing this. So we went one step further, and we sort of say, why can't we go one step further and use directly DC appliances? And we use something like this. Let solar be there, giving DC. I will take the grid, which is AC, I'll convert that into DC. Rest, I will keep everything in DC. And why don't I run a DC line at home? And this is the product that we actually designed, an inverterless product. And this is what we are having. The early version, the first version of this product was there in our home. Highly efficient use of power. Low power from grid alone will be converted to DC. Rest is all this. We have chosen 48 volt DC. I don't want to get into this for safety consideration. We found that that is the best voltage. It is a good compromise between higher voltage we need to have thinner wires, and for the safety reason, 48 volt DC has been chosen, and we have started using it. The only thing that I want to point out, and sometimes people sort of say, what is this design? What is their great? What is the great innovation in this? The design is extremely difficult. It has taken us 3 years of team of 30, 40 people working. We are almost there. We today have a product which is more or less what is meeting the theoretical limits, but we are still not doing 100%. And it's a very, very difficult reason. The reason why it becomes difficult is, first of all, solar itself is at different voltage. The voltage is not constant. It is not, doesn't give 48 volt. It keeps on changing throughout the day as the sun goes up and down. The battery, depending on the state of charge of battery, the battery voltage can vary all the way from 42 volt to 57 volts. And then there is a load, which you want to keep it at 48 volt. How do you really do that? Very complicated design. And how do you do it? The other thing that I remember, Professor Radhakrishna Rao had taught me what is called dynamic range. That you need to do it for high power and low power. Can you design something which has low losses for low power as well as high power? Now, we wanted to make this whole system for up to 500 watts, so we designed it. But what if only you use 10 watts? At 500 watts, if the losses are certain percentage, what if you use only 10 watts? What will be the losses? It's extremely important because when I come to I'll show you the villages in Rajasthan. Many of them are running for quite a bit of time 10 watts. They're just running a bulb. Late in the evening, after they have finished everything, they have just one bulb on. And you're consuming 10 watts. But if it is inefficient, that's the time. And the design becomes complex, and it's an extremely challenging design. We underestimate the challenge. We have just got stroke. I have done theory. I have worked in electromagnetics area. I understand what theory is. That were trivial stuff compared to what we are doing today. And not one, it has to be a team of people, a fairly large team of people working together to do something like this. But we are getting there, we are designing it. Finally, we are there. We have a product, what we call inverter-less. Why do we call it inverter-less? Normally, most of the people are familiar with inverter because our power keeps on going off quite often in our homes. When power goes off, the inverter gives us the power because we have a battery storage and inverter. We say we have inverter-less because inverter essentially has a DC battery charge and it converts it to AC. We don't convert it. That's what the name inverter comes from. It's an inverter-less. And we designed this inverter-less product. It can take inputs of solar panel all the way from 125 watt to 500 watt. You can start with 125 watt at 5,000 rupees and it can keep on adding. I'm telling you, a middle class home, 500 watt is enough. You will see that. And for a low income home, 125 watt is great to begin with. And you can add battery, you can put grid, grid is fine. You can put a battery, and battery can be anywhere from 1 kilowatt hour to almost 5 kilowatt hour. That will be pretty much enough. Now, this is another very interesting story. When we started using this battery, we started working with different people. And Amar Raja, I don't know how many of you know of Amar Raja, probably heard of it, but probably you haven't heard that Amar Raja, just 2 hours from here in Chittoor, has the largest VRLA factory in the world, #1 factory in the world. Absolutely great factory, modern factory, employing about 6,000-7,000 rural people, making absolutely top-class battery. Nobody in the world can compete with them. They have the largest factory. In fact, when I went to China, they were sort of saying everything else we can handle. Amar Raja, we have to be careful. Now, they were making a battery. This battery that they were making, a very similar battery, 1 kilowatt hour battery, cost about 6,000 rupees. It was only running 800 cycles. 800 times you can charge and discharge, which means roughly, if you use it with solar, in 800 days, about 2.5 years, it will go away. Now, when we are going to install this in rural areas in particular, we wanted to extend a life. And we said, can we get something better? And they said, well, nothing better is available. And it was a matter of luck. And I want to point out how luck sometimes, and we are so caught up with the chemistry, so many people keep on working on this chemistry, that chemistry. We were able to work with them in 4 days' time. In 4 days' time, we were able to come up with alternate ideas of not changing the chemistry, but changing the physics. Changing the physics. We never pay attention to the physics, which includes the mechanical aspects, the conductivity aspects, the heat dissipation aspect, the packaging aspect, the way you charge, the way you discharge, and we are able to increase the life cycle to 1600 cycles. The only battery of 1 kilowatt hour in a VRLA battery in the world today which does 1600 cycles. And in 4 days, we basically came with the concept. In 1.5 months, they were able to validate it in their lab. In 4 months, they came with the first prototype, and today they are producing something like this. Now, what I'm pointing out is that we always underestimate such kind of research. It can only be done with industry and academic people working together. Now, in this case, we are not publishing. Some patent has been filed, but even that has been kept minimal, because we have got some very, very interesting ideas to be able to do that. But what I'm pointing out, that the research, R&D, and to solve problems, when you have a real problem to solve, this was very important for us, and we have been able to get there. And today, we have this output, which is 125 to 500 watt of 48 volt DC. And I'm telling you, 125 watt is good enough for small homes. For large home, 500 watt is good enough of uninterrupted DC power. Uninterrupted. This becomes uninterrupted DC power. It gives you the inverterless function, it gives you the solar function, and you will see when I point out the cost, it's an unbelievable kind of cost benefit that you can actually get. What is the most important thing, partly I think we learned it through our wireless experience, is we added a Bluetooth to it. It doesn't cost us much today to add. We, therefore, on a mobile phone, I can capture continuously all the data. How much solar power is produced instant to instant, how much battery is getting charged instant to instant, how much load is getting consumed instant to instant, and in every home we can do that. And that is then uploaded to the server. I know there are people who are working in data analytics, and suddenly you find there is a wealth of data. You first think that you actually find out that things are not working as you had planned. That's the first thing that you find out. As you start scaling in the lab, everything was working all right. When you went and installed it, things are not working. Of course, it gives you sleepless night. You have gone and connected in the village, and the people in the village are saying, my lights are going off. And there's no way, because the kind of villages that we have connected, you have to walk 15 kilometers on a sand to be able to get there. And the homes are about 300 meters apart. You cannot monitor without something like this. But very simple, what wireless has given us, through Bluetooth we are able to monitor and are able to get instant to instant data. What is the voltage, what is happening? And then we start correcting it. That's the first thing. But correction is first step. Next step will come, how are people using it? How can we optimize the usage? How can we improve the product? And this is something that we have started doing through this. Well, we are going to DC. There was no DC appliances. So you think that this box design was enough. This box would have gone nowhere. Because there was no DC appliances. There was nothing. So suddenly we had to catch hold of industry, partly use Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed to work with that industry to see that LED bulbs, which are 48 volt DC, are created. The cell phone charger sockets are created. The fans are created. The LED tube lights are created, and with a remote. Why? Remote is easy to today turn on, turn off, to increase and decrease the speed of the fan, increase, decrease the brightness, and each of these becomes a challenge because you are designing all these products. All these products have been designed in the last 2.5 years. Not only they have been designed, they have been commercialized. You have to commercialize them. And you have to do it at a price point similar to the AC products, but otherwise nobody is going to buy that. And that is always extremely challenging. The only friends that you have in this is the people in semiconductor industry. Initially, of course, they don't want to come to you. They say, well, but once they believe that you are getting somewhere and you will give them numbers, they will help you. And we started designing each of these products. We had to work with different industry. It's a real tremendous amount of challenge to work with different industry. You have to talk at the top level so that you sell them a dream. Without selling dreams, nothing happens. And then you have to work at engineering level and help them produce product. And you have to work with their purchase team to ensure that the component prices are right. And each of these, we are able to do that. And because we are able to do that, we are able to do that today, that in 20,000 rupees, we are able to install today. That's the cost, not the installation cost, but 125 watt solar panel, a battery, a tube light, a bulb, a cell phone, a fan with a remote. We are able to do that. And not only that, we have to then go and plead with the television manufacturers. All of you are producing this television, which is only a DC television. Why don't you give me a DC socket out? In the beginning, all of them are reluctant. Once they see potential market, they come in. Then we went and created this desert cooler. It's actually very similar to fan. Those of you who are from North India or from those dry lands understand the importance of a desert cooler. Almost like air conditioner. It has to be in dry. Consumes about 180 watt of power. We designed this whole thing, 60 watt of power. Two youngsters in my lab actually designed it, fabricated it, have incubated a company, created a company, and have started this. There is another person who is designing a DC refrigerator. Well, now a lot of people are designing DC refrigerator. And there are some youngsters who are taking extremely challenging job, particularly with a focus in rural areas, that I don't know how LPG gas cylinder will reach in those kind of homes where electricity also can't reach. But can I make a solar water stove? Water stove? Initially, even I was shocked. They came and showed me something. So our own BTech students, they were able to do electrolysis and was able to create hydrogen and oxygen, store it like a biogas, and then use it. They have early prototype, but I am fairly certain that they will be able to do all running on solar, all running on DC. And this is the kind of thing that we started designing. And today, we have started doing things. For example, very recent deployment in Rajasthan, we are actually starting to get large deployment orders now. In Rajasthan, 4,000 off-grid homes, off-grid, means they've never been connected to power. With the support of Ministry of Power, we are able to connect these homes. And these are some pictures of the home. Bhumiji Ka Gaon, away from Jodhpur. You have to drive, and then you have to walk finally. No vehicle can actually get there. Or you can ride on camels. Those camels is the only other way they can go. Even walking is very difficult because you're on the sand. It's okay. This is the kind of monitoring. This actually was monitored, I think, last Friday from one of the homes in the Rajasthan place. And every instant, I'm actually figuring out what is the amount of solar power that is being generated. This is starting around 10 a.m. on that day. Oh, sorry, not 10 a.m., around 6 a.m. I can't see it very clearly, and goes on till 5 a.m., p.m. This is the solar power generated. Well, we don't get such nice curve in Chennai because always you will see some cloud or other, or even, but you get a lot of solar power. And this is the usage in the daytime, and the usage continued in the evening. I have not shown the curve. And this is the amount of power that went into the battery, and amount of power that was consumed by the battery. I could have extended this. And one can monitor and say what is happening. Now, if we find that there is some problem, we add up all this. What is the losses? And believe it or not, I think you're almost there. But on Sunday, I worked with looking at all this data, spent some time, and wrote a number of mail. And then Monday morning, I met the team. That is yesterday. Met the team. I said, somewhere you are losing about 50 to 60 watts. I have a feel from this data. We had getting data from some 20, 30 homes now, installations. Somewhere you're losing 50 to 60. I can't understand. I don't know where. And we started looking at it. I said, finally we sort of said, 2 watts you are losing here. Why are you losing this 2 watts? 2 watt power? In a home, we won't even ignore it. But yeah, 2 watt you are losing. We're very fortunate that while sitting the team, they came up, yeah, but we are doing this. So why are you doing this? This is not what you are supposed to do. What if you change this? minor change in design, minor change in software, and suddenly 2 hour watt that you're losing for 15 hours is 30 watt hour. That is 5% of the total solar power. We were able to figure out yesterday. Now they're going to implement it in the next few days. I told them there is another 30 watts being lost somewhere. We have a fairly good understanding of where it is going on, and now I think the challenge. The point is today, the ability to capture data, and that's what Bhaskar was telling me outside, ability to capture data live enables us to do designs which was not possible till yesterday. We would have left it otherwise. And these are important in the homes when you connect them, even 5%, 10% losses, finally all of them add up. I remember first time Kumar Wells would say 15% losses, sir, why are you worried? But no, when they all added up, that's where the problem took place. And I think this is the kind of challenge that we have to take up, engineering challenge, working on our problem. Why we have to work on this kind of problem? Because in India, there are multiple problems. First, we have shortage of electricity. Now we can say, no, nowadays there is enough electricity. Well, there are times where we have enough electricity, but shortage of electricity has been the game for last so many years. It will come back. Number two, there was a report done last year, CEEW, one of our students is involved, and in 6 eastern states, almost between 50 to 70% in the villages have power less than 4 hours. And the real reason is not just access and not just shortage, it's because they cannot afford. They cannot afford. That's a big problem. What do you do when you cannot afford? How do you really design something which they can afford? Remember the same, actually Bhaskar and I had worked, and our team, there are others, worked on this wireless. And the key reason we said that telephony is not increasing because people cannot afford telephony. And our key reason for getting into wireless so that they can actually afford. And we said, can we design, and we are able to do that. Today we believe that we have the solution such that it can make it affordable. And then of course, there is a big advantage if you do this with solar and with DC power, not wasting so much power, saving so much power. We will be the most green nation in the country. That's another advantage. Our whole debate at Paris could have been very different if you would have adopted it and started using it. I wish we had started doing this earlier. And of course, there is a great response from people who have seen lights for the first time. They're of course demanding more and more and more. They want atta chakki and they want this or that. Not everything we can produce. We have a small team, even though I think we have a fairly, in one way, large team, but every product is a challenge and we are actually doing that. One may say, well, 100 watt, 125 watt, what can it do? And just to give you what 100 watt can do, it can support 3 lights, 2 fans, 1 cell phone charging, or 3 lights, 1 fan, 1 television, and a cell phone charging. For lowest income home, this package is not bad. This is not bad. 3 lights, 1 fan, and can we do that such that everybody can afford? And let Deepak have 8 fans, 2 televisions, 4 laptops, the 500 watts will be able to power it. That's the point that I want to make it, if you use DC and do it correctly. This is the kind of challenge that we have taken up, and we can do this. Now, just to give you an idea, and this is a very interesting. This is data that we actually, after we measured and did everything, we actually took the number and put it into a very simple Excel sheet. We haven't even gone and used some of our youngsters to design nice SQL sheet. But I took a typical home, not Deepak's home, but let's say a slightly bigger home, 2 tube lights, 2 fans, 2 bulbs, 1 phone and 1 television running for 6 hours a tube light. Bulbs will be run for 10 hours, fans for 12 hours, phones for 4 hours, and television for 10 hours. Took a one particular home, somewhat lower income home, but just below middle income. And we have taken every cost. Cost of initial installation, depreciation, interest rate we take 12%, 13%. We are not taking small interest rate. And grid cost we have taken 5 rupees. And then we started doing the simulation. Just look at this data. This is actually unbelievable data. If I have AC grid, that's what all of us use. All of us, for something like that, will be paying 15 rupees 79 paise per day with zero load shedding. Bhaskar says IIT has no load shedding. Well, it probably is true. If you pay 5 rupees, you will pay 15 rupees 79 paise into 30 days, so approximately 500 rupees, little less than 500 rupees. And that is only 2 tube lights, 2 fans, 2 bulbs, they at 5 rupees per unit. 5 rupees per unit is already subsidized. But that's what the cost is. Now what we did is, suppose we have a DC grid, and put all the DC appliances. The cost is only 6 rupees. Now where do we get a DC grid is a separate issue. We'll come to that. So this is only 200 rupees per day. And this includes all the costs, initial cost. Then what I sort of say, suppose there is a 4-hour load shedding. Much of the country has this 4-hour load shedding. You go to a place like Meerut, even a few days back, load shedding is still 10, 12 hours. But 4-hour load shedding, the 1579, and if you put an inverter, the kind of thing that Deepak Mirza uses, is 31 rupees 35 paise. You are spending 1,000 rupees. Now you may not do it because you may have bought this battery and inverter at 25,000 rupees and you may not worry about it. But if you take the depreciation and interest rate, then you are spending 1,000 rupees. But if you use that same thing with DC, then you are only paying 10 rupee 22 paise. Then we did one more thing. If you add solar to this, suppose I use solar, the kind of things that government is pushing, it does go down from 31 rupees to 30 rupees, but only marginally going down. And then you are doing upfront investment, so people may want it, may not want it. We went to off-grid home, a place like Rajasthan, where there was no power. And suppose just use solar and battery. What does the cost works out to be? 71 rupees per day. In fact, one of the things that you will find, our poorest people have to spend the maximum to get the same thing which we in city Chennai could get. We in Chennai will pay only 15 rupees 79. They have to pay 71 rupees per day to get the same facility. So roughly 30 into 71 is about 2,000 rupees, or more than 2,000 rupees. 2,200 rupees is what you will be spending. But what if I use DC, inverterless? Your cost is only 1585. So even if you don't have grid, my cost is similar to the cost of AC grid. So today in city people are paying 1579. If I want to use all the appliances in a totally off-grid situation, I can actually do it at the same price. And if I use less equipment, I can of course do it much better. This is the kind of power that we are able to do it. And all kinds of other things. Can you use DC appliances and AC? Somebody believes that that's the way to promote. It partly solves the problem, but keeps the problem, only partly solves it. Solar doesn't get advantage. Everything else still remains a problem. And this is the kind of thing that we started doing. I think this is one of the most powerful things that we did. So solar DC plus inverterless plus DC power line at home can be huge savings, and 500 watts, as I told you, could except washing machine, mixer, grinder, air conditioners, it can pretty much take care of everything. Now one may say 500 watt, does it really amount to anything in the country? So we did one more calculation. If 500 watt of solar panel, if every home in India has it, what is the total amount of electricity that we produce? We found the total amount of electricity that we produce is the total amount of electricity that all the homes in the country use today. Can we enable that to happen? That's not too big. It's a small fraction of the home cost. Even 500 watt will cost only 25,000 rupees. That's the kind of thing that we should be able to do, and this is the challenge that we have. Well, India can become the most green nation. Where is the problem? The problem is, when you go to people and say, use it, see, where do I buy appliances? What voltage? 48 volt, I've never heard of that. We have throughout the time used AC. Don't come with your crazy ideas. What do somewhere? I don't want my home to be touched. And lack of standardization further hurts. Where is the standardization? There is no standardization. It's a big challenge when you are challenging something which is 100 years old, and I keep on telling, that's a challenge. But at times, we have to change. We have to take a bold step to change. So the question is, what will make us change? What will make the people change? Just by government putting a decree is not going to happen. And that's the challenge that Bhaskar was pointing out. The former secretary of Power came and told us, he was our alumni, saying, what will make people change? You do something so that people want this. What he told, and he used the term, that this is a push, technology push. It will now, can you create a pull so that people change? And we first said we cannot do anything. And we're very, very fortunate. In 2 weeks, we're able to come up with this idea called UDC Innovation, aim to create such a market pull. What is the basic idea? The existing infrastructure remains. 230-volt line comes to every home. I'll put something at every home. I'll show you how. And we'll keep on giving you an AC line, 230 volt. I'll also give you a DC line, a limited power DC line. So you don't have to worry about getting a DC line. And that DC line will be 48 volt DC, so it's standardized. All that you have to go and is get the appliances. And once I start putting 48 volt DC, there are enough people, I'm sure Delta will come up with a lot of appliances. Huh? So then I said, we'll do one more thing. Whenever there is a power shortage, there is load shedding. Where there is a power shortage in a particular area, there is load shedding. You cut out the lines. We will come up with some magic, and this was the magic that we had to work. We will cut the AC line, but we'll keep the DC line on. And DC line will have a limited amount of power, but it will be free of load shedding. Now we knew that this will work. Question is, how do you go about doing it? And it took us some challenge, so I'll say significant amount of challenge, lot of interesting thing. We says, well, this is what happens today. A transformer is there. From the transformer, there is a distribution transformer on near your home, and from distribution transformer, you get 230 volt. You get 230 volt. At that point, at the home, I will introduce a device called uninterrupted DC power module. Essentially change your meter or add something to the meter, which will give you an AC line as well as DC line. DC line will be a limited power because it has an AC to DC converter of a limited power. And whenever power fails, when power fails, of course, when there is load shedding done, so this line is cut off and the whole home will go dark. So that is the current situation. If I use AC line will go off and DC line will go off. But then we came up with this innovation called UDC innovation. We says, well, we can do something. And it was a relatively simple innovation. What we'll do is that from the transformer, from at the substation, we'll add something and we will we'll send a signal to each meter. We'll send a signal. And how do we send a signal is not important. We'll send a signal to each meter. And each meter will be such that if the load shedding is to be done, the AC line is cut off, DC line continues to work. Whenever there is load shedding, a DC line continues to work, AC line gets cut off. If I can do this, DC line will become free of load shedding. And there is a DC line at your home and it's free of load shedding. Now you have a huge reason to go and buy DC appliances. Suddenly there will be interest in DC appliances, and as you do that, and we'll do that such that load shedding is not affected, etc. I don't want to get into details of that. Customers will use DC appliances, and DC appliances will become acceptable. That is what we try to do, and we actually did it. Today we are installing 100,000 such lines in Bihar and Assam. In Bihar. And we are 100,000 homes. I'll very quickly, I know we started very late and I've taken time, so I'm just going to spend a little time on electric vehicle, as Bhaskar was pointed out. The other thing, which is related and unrelated, because once we started moving in these areas, we found that there were a lot of things that we could actually do in whole span. And these are not the only things. We are actually doing a major amount of work for air conditioning systems. That's another thing. But electric vehicle was another reason. In India, we knew that the way pollution is going on, the way we have oil shortage, the key reason that actually I found that one has to work on electric vehicles. India does not have much oil. It imports all its oil. It will not have, did not have it yesterday. It does not have it tomorrow today. It will not have it tomorrow. We have to move out of oil. Sometime or other, we have to move out of oil. And the other thing is, of course, they are highly congested. Vehicle population continues to grow, very heavy pollution. If we can work on electric vehicles, maybe we can get rid of these two pollution. These are two reasons we started working on electric vehicles. Fairly soon, and you must always start with techno-economic study. You have to have basic understanding of technology, and you have to understand economics well. If you don't understand economics, you cannot make a significant difference. So what we did is that we sort of say, suppose I take a vehicle. Today a vehicle is driven by IC engine and all its paraphernalia. Suppose I replace that with electric engine and all the paraphernalia. What happens? And I say battery, I will not include. I'll finally include battery, but battery is by fuel. Battery is like petrol for this vehicle. So why IC engine drivetrain cost keeps on going year after year. Year after year, a vehicle becomes expensive because of that. Every year it goes up. Small amount, it keeps on going up. I also found that all the work that our power electronics people were doing, many of those work was being done by some of our own alumni and students, the cost of electric drivetrain was going down year after year. And when I did a more detailed analysis, unfortunately such kind of analysis people had not done. And the reason why that goes down is because more and more R&D is done, there is Moore's law that we can ride on, and then the hardware modules are starting to be replaced by software. You can configure the same hardware to do multiple things instead of doing only one thing. And when we started doing this, we found the electric drivetrain cost is coming down. And when I did a little more detailed analysis, we said, well, we seem to have crossed this. When, I can't say, maybe last year, maybe year before, we have crossed this. So from now on, at the same volume, electric drivetrain will be cheaper and cheaper. The IC engine drivetrain will be more and more expensive. Well, this is extremely good reason why we actually need to make something like this. What about battery and fuel? So I started looking at the fuel, and I saw again, and this was done last year, the cost of the fuel was going up year after year. Now it has kind of flattened out, but if you take the long-term thing, it keeps on going up. The cost of the battery keeps on coming down. 8% by R&D, there are more and more interesting things that we are doing. We ourselves did something very interesting in recent times, and we suddenly find that, again, we seem to have crossed over. So at the same volume, we can make an electrical thing which will cost us overall less because the running cost will be low because battery cost replacing the petrol will cost lower and the initial cost will be high. What is the reason? The sheer reason is our ability to do R&D, design things, because in India you have to design it at the right price point, do it at a reasonable volume, and you can actually win this game. Of course, first thing, but we have shortage of electricity. Well, first thing that we have done enough work in electricity to sort of say there is no off-peak hour shortage of electricity. Nighttime, there is no shortage. If you make your electric vehicle charge during nighttime, it is beneficial for electric grid. Daytime, there is a little bit of shortage. Maybe you discourage people from charging during the daytime. And then maybe use solar. There is a huge potential. Use solar in the daytime. Then people say, well, but you know, you're not really solving the electric pollution. Even some of my colleagues kind of wrote. But you know, instead of in every car you have IC engine and it is polluting, if you make a centralized plant, whatever fuel, you can always design something which has a better scrubber, better pollution control. You can, of course, take it away from your congested area where the pollution is most badly affecting, but you can actually clean it. That's where the R&D has to be done. That R&D has to be done. Shouldn't sort of say, stop the electric vehicle. Electric vehicle is the direction that we need to go. So this is what we started working on. We started looking at it, and disposal of battery technologies are emerging. We saw everything is ready. Introduce time of the day metering so that people start charging in the night time. If the people start charging in the night time, it helps in load balancing. Anybody who's in associated electrical industry will welcome it, saying that suddenly my tariff will go down. If I can actually make a lot of electric vehicles do that. And use solar chargers in the daytime. And you can use slow chargers and fast chargers. And fortunately, we have been able to push the government to come up that you put this in every petrol station, in every parking lot, and gradually they are starting. Slow chargers can be at each home. Fast chargers can be put in public places. Today, if you want to do this, you have to work with lithium ion because that's the best batteries available, 3,000 charge-discharge cycles. Fortunately, there are enough players in India which are doing two-wheelers. We are making India push. We have companies like Mahindra, Rewa, on which I am the board of. It has a two-door e-Rewa. It will come with a four-door e-Rewa very soon. We have a vehicle, which I am driving, a Verito. A four-door, very nice Verito, a sedan, 110 kilometers, extremely interesting. There are other vehicles coming in. We need more push for small buses, large buses. Now industry is suddenly waking up. Every day I'm now getting calls from at least 3 people saying, we want to work with you and make this possible. And this, if you really want Make in India story, this is something that you can do. And you can start transforming this whole odd even issue that had come in Delhi. And all these things can actually be done very nicely by using electric vehicle. So there will be various R&D required, a lot of R&D. And I'm pointing out to you that even our best minds are not enough to do this kind of R&D, whether it is in motors or batteries or on lightweighting of materials. There is so much work that needs to be done. It has to be focused work, work which will produce results in relatively short time. Of course, you can also have long-term work. And this is what is where I think IITs have to take lead to actually drive some of this. The only question that people then sort of ask, yes, all this is great, but why did this happen today? In 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 now. Why not 10 years, 20 years back? And there is a very interesting thing that happened, and I want to point out. We have thought about it. Why did we also not think about it 10 years back? There was electricity shortage. But could we have done this? There are many, many things that I can point out. Solar panel prices, cost was very high. Only in last 2 years, it has come down. It was double 3 years back. It was 4 times 4 years back. So that price, LEDs were not there. LEDs were not there. The displays, electronics of course have matured now and much more is there. But I think probably the biggest role has been played by what is called power electronics integrated circuits. Of course, the good part was that we had learned how to open that up and fix that. But that's what the situation was. But somewhere in mid-80s came the integrated circuit. One little chip, which will produce in high volume. Moore's law will ride upon it because it will become smaller and smaller, cost lower and lower with high volumes. Will be extremely reliable. The key thing that integrated circuit was brought in reliability. There was no individual soldering of 2 components. Once you designed it and it passed the test in the factory, it will stay there all right for next 10, 20 years without much of a problem. That integrated circuits is what made electronics possible and the software associated with it. I was surprised till around 2000, 2002, 2003, 2004, all the power electronic circuits were all discrete circuits. There was no integrated circuit. This is all low power. The integrated circuit was extremely low power. High power, even to drive a motor, even to open one gate, little bit. You didn't have integrated circuits. And then this power electronics integrated circuits came. Unfortunately, the people who worked on it, a lot of them are our alumni. Jayant Baliga, whom we are going to give honorary doctorate and who will give a convocation address, has played a key role. There are others like Krishna Shenoy. There are several other of our own alumni and faculty in the country who have played a major role in making power electronics integrated circuit. We don't celebrate our own successes, something that we have produced. And this we have given to the world, not just to us. Where did we see the change? And when did I first notice it? I remember that when the cell phone first came in around 2000, 2001, there used to be this heavy transformer-based charger. Big one. Suddenly, it became very thin and small. And I kept on asking people, nobody could tell me clearly what has changed. What was changed was a power electronics integrated circuits. Earlier, you used to use 50 hertz for coupling in the transformer from 230 volt to any other voltage. You used to use 50 hertz. And that much electromagnetics, I know that you need for 50 hertz so much, a large amount of core for that. Now, if I could do it at 500 hertz, my core size will go down by a factor of 10. If I do at 5000 hertz, my core size will become 1 by 100, and it will be almost very, very tiny cores. Now, I couldn't switch because earlier I was getting at 50 hertz from the main line, and that's what I was using. But power electronics integrated circuits allowed us to switch higher currents at whatever speed that we wanted. Suddenly, the transformers became very, very small. Every single thing became very small, and we could do that. And of course, the other thing that I found it very interesting, that I saw my colleague Lakshmi Narasimha doing some design. And when I saw the design that she was doing, she was using a DSP. The design that was doing was exactly the kind of design that I had learned from Bhaskar while designing a modem signal. And he used to sort of say, oh, this little kink is coming, I need to shape that. By writing a software, I can do that. It was doing exactly the same. Suddenly, digital signal processing had come in. I think our students are not understanding the excitement that this whole area is going to cause, the power electronics integrated circuit. And this is what is making all this possible. Things change, and we don't know how to use it. Of course, people have used it for those transformers. We have to use it for our fans. We have to use it for our coolers. We have to use it for our refrigerators. And we have to make things, even our electric vehicles. And that's a direction that we really need to go. And I'm almost ending. Potential to impact all kinds of industries of tomorrow. So I want to end that I strongly believe today that by 2030, 50% of our power will come from solar. A majority of it will come from the rooftop solar. And the kind of work that we will have done, the same product may not remain because people will come with better product. That is the way it is. But the concept that we have introduced is going to win. I'll tell you, 20, 25 years, 30 years down the line, probably no home in the world will be primarily AC powered, it will be primarily DC powered. Question is, can we be the first to change? Or would we rather always follow? It's a question of also becoming technology leader. I think if we decide to, we can become technology leader. Or we can just wait for the rest of the world to do things and then to follow. We'll follow, we are a good follower. Our electric transform, most of it by 2030 should become electric. And we know it is going to happen. Again, question is, are we going to be the leaders? Are we going to be the followers? If this kind of thing we are able to do it quickly, we will be at the forefront of climate change debate. We will drive changes in the world. We will be the leaders. Otherwise, not. Thank you very much. I know it's very late, but I don't mind 2-3 quick questions. Is that okay? I know it's very late, so another few minutes, not more than that. If somebody has questions, some comments, I can answer that, otherwise, great. I know it's dinner time. Most people have to leave. We started late. We started at 5:55. See, basically what I'm trying to point out that you will see new appliances, new materials, new things coming up, which will keep on improving the energy efficiency. Tomorrow, a better LED is today. Tomorrow, something else will come. The question is, can we use things to that efficiency? I won't, for example, we are today making brushless DC motor, it has. We know that SR motors can be more efficient. Of course, not as drastic. From AC to DC, we gain by about 60%. Now the gains will be 5%, 7%. But I think a lot of gains will take place with 5 to 7% over years, which will keep on tapping, and we need to tap.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, during Chennai floods, when the solar panels installed in institute, which can produce power up to 1 megawatt, did not produce any power, how did the solar panels at your home produce power?
Okay, so I think it's a question of design. I think the solar panel that we have put in the institute, I in fact have been responsible for it. The basic architecture and design of that has come from outside. It is AC coupled. It is supposed to work, the way the whole design is, it will AC, only when AC power is there, the grid is there, it will work. The minute grid is not there, it will shut off. And there are reasons why it will shut off, because solar panel will not produce constant power, it will produce fluctuating power. And in power, you always have to, every instant to instant, you have to match the load and the power generated. And if there's just a solar panel, it is not possible to do that. When we did it, we realized this problem. We designed it with a battery and in a manner that we can actually match the load instant to instant. Today we are designing. I think it's a question of a little bit of experimentation. Unfortunately, when we do it at a large scale, some reluctance to experimentation is there. But I think it is a matter of whenever we get a little bit time, in 1 or 2 years, we'll come up with a situation. The next time the flood takes place, we will continue to have at least part of the places to be powered up. It will require some amount of intelligence. I think it is possible to put it. Nobody in the world has worked on it. In fact, I remember the story. I'll tell you this little story. First time I went to Gujarat, somebody had invited, we're doing great solar stuff. And it produced, gone to Gujarat to a new campus, a new building that has come up. This is completely solar powered and all that. And fantastic, this, that. I was talked so much. Our current Prime Minister, our Chief Minister, he was talking very big about that. I went there. I was asked to come there. I went there. I saw it was very impressive and all that. Actually, when I was inside, the power went there out for 2-3 minutes. And it was bright sun in Gujarat. I said, well, that's the first time I got to know that when the power goes, solar also is shut down. So I started asking question, why did it shut down? So first they said, oh, some minor problems and all that. People dismissed it. But I persisted. I asked the secretary, then they called all the people who had installed. And they tried all kinds of fast things that this has happened, that has happened. But I sort of said, well, doesn't make sense. It is shutting down. Tell me, if I remove the grid power, will the solar remain? They thought it will remain, by the way. Though every day it was going off for 1 or 2 minutes. Then actually, finally somebody came in, and they were going on calling Germany, because that's where the designers were. And they said they will get me into a conference call with their designers. This is an Indian company, but they got with their partners. And with the Germans, when I was communicating, it took me 20 minutes to convey to them the problem. He says, why should power go off? Why should, for them, they have not understood ever the grid can go off. They have never encountered a situation grid goes off. It took me quite some time to explain to him the grid can go off. He says, well, once in 5 to 7 years, some failure can take place. Yes, we don't design for that. I said, no, every day the grid goes off. He couldn't understand. When I actually was able to communicate, then he says, well, we haven't thought about it. We haven't designed the system. So I threw it as a challenge that why can't we design it up? That's the first time. And of course, I thought about it. I couldn't understand. I remember coming and talking to Bhaskar. And we figured out amongst ourselves, the reason is because you can't match the load and demand. Then we actually started this whole solar project to simply do the matching of demand and supply. instant to instant. We haven't worked on it because in the meantime, we started working on this inverterless. In fact, we are supposed to work on it. I've been asking Dr. Prajot Kaur that that's something that she has to deliver over the next 1 year. So we'll be able to do that. But very interesting thing, we have to work on our problems. We have to understand our problems. And we just can't import things. We can learn things from them. I have no problem. We actually can learn a lot of things from them. But if we copy what they have done, we are not going to get anywhere. And this is our problems. If our water has arsenic, our water has arsenic. It doesn't matter whether European water is very clean. We have to solve that problem. Thank you very much. I think I'll just stop here.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I have two questions. Like, why did
One
you say-
question, please, because I think it's getting late.
Okay,
After that, we can do one-to-one.
Okay, so you are confident that by 2030, 50% of the power will be solar.
Yes.
But still, I find that there is not much of discussion in the media about this project. So, how much government and media encourage this?
I think a lot of people have to work together. First, since it's a majority is a gathering is IIT, I think we in IITs have to take up this challenge as R&D challenge. Many times I have heard some of my colleagues saying, oh, this is PCB design. I think we don't respect work which makes a difference. We don't respect very complex work which results into a product. We only believe a good theoretical paper is a great work. That is changing. I know over the last few years there has been some emphasis, but not enough. I don't think people who have done something like this comes for a promotion will get promotion in IIT, even today. We don't respect. So I will start with us at IITians and at R&D places. We need to start doing that. Our youngsters need to do that. And they have to take up such challenges. And there are hundreds of problems of this kind. We can talk about it. Number two, of course, the incubation is now taking off, where some of these things are being taken up. Not always, because risk-taking is high in this. So our main R&D has to get into this, because incubation cannot go into such high risk-taking. Second, we have to work with industry, and industry has to work with us. Initially, there will be some reluctance, but industry will work with us. Investment will have to come, investment will come, VCs will come, industries will come. And then we have to make products. Sometimes we declare victory too quickly, and media talks about it. But we don't have a product. We don't have a reliable product. What will happen? It will have a backlash. So I think we need to get the media right in. We need, of course, policy support. Starting from techno and economics, we need policy support. We need to help in policy formulation. Starting from technology and economics. Two things, technology, economics, and I don't want to underestimate sociology, because people have to finally like it. If they don't like it, so technology, economics, and sociology, I think somehow captures all this. There may be various elements of this. And I think that is what is needed. And then, yes, media will come in, the country will come in, and we have to believe that we can do it. We have to believe that we don't have to follow, but we can lead. I think that's what is going to do this. Your second question, I'll answer one-to-one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such a practical and fact-filled talk. Now I request the Research Affairs Secretary, Anand Krishnan, to give the vote of thanks.
Good evening, one and all. It was really an insightful and inspirational talk from Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala on such a relevant and interesting topic in the most simplest way. We are really indebted and thankful to Professor Ashok. I would also like to thank our respected director for his valuable time out of his busy schedule to attend this lecture. I am really thankful to Dean Academic Research, who took the initiative to have this institute lecture and gave the opportunity to Research Affairs Council to coordinate the event. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the supporting staff for their valuable guidance. Last but not the least, I thank all the audience for their sincere interest and making the lecture interactive. Thank you all.